Hey, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka the Batman, here in the city of Gotham at the top of the hour. So I got a couple of things I want to get into to start off with. Okay, there's I would say three topics. Okay, to start with, there's a couple of things. First, the first one I'm gonna start off with. This is, and I know people will say, "Oh, that's so wrong," but if you know me, and most of you do, I care about right and wrong. What's most important to me, it's not about good or bad, it's about right and wrong. Okay, so over the weekend we had an incident. Okay, our infamous, that's the right word I should use, our infamous Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx was assaulted over the weekend. Not a block from her house. Okay, apparently, or as the story has been told, or has it been leaked, let me put it that way, she was a victim of an assault of an individual. Apparently there was some form of, or there was a altercation, a verbal altercation between her and another individual. So what happened, the individual became so irate with her, and from what I understand, there were some words that were passed, and it just carried on from there. Now, the state's attorney's office, or Kim Foxx's office, is not getting into the details on what the what was actually said and what was actually said. But we do know that the individual became very, very irate with her and tossed and threw a drink in her face. Yes, according to what was said, tossed a, quote, a brown substance like drink. Now, one report was a brown substance like drink. Then another report stated that it happened to be a slushy, a Coca-Cola slushy. Now, let me tell you something. And I know, I know y'all gonna say, "Oh my gosh," but if you know me, and most of you do, this is no holds barred. Okay, anything thrown in Kim Foxx's face is a big improvement. Okay, I'm just keeping it real. Okay, that's a woman that's just hard to look at, and the guy got mad, whatever what the case may be. So subsequently, this individual was arrested. Now, I'm gonna show you. Now, as I said, I'm about what's right and what's wrong. He threw a drink in her face, and technically, that's considered a battery, and it can be upgraded to aggravated assault depending on what the substance was or is. Okay, from indication, it was a Coca-Cola slushy. Okay, hey, look, I'm just keeping it real. It may have been a big improvement. It may be an improvement on her side of the fence. Now, this individual was arrested, and this happened, like I said, this happened a block away from her home. She lives in Flossmoor, a block away from her home. This individual was arrested, and he was arrested and released, what they call, and let go, what they call pre-trial release. He cannot go. He cannot go within 500 feet of her. He must avoid her at all costs, and so on and so forth. Now, if they live on the same block, that's going to be really, really tough, because it's the law. It's a very fine line when it comes to two individuals having a discrepancy, and they happen to live within a certain distance, within feet of one another. But this is what it is. This individual has been ordered to stay away from Kim Foxx at all. And basically, and so here's the other thing. A lot of people upset that he should have remained in jail. Wow. how ironic is that? This is the same person who were pushing for this particular aspect of bond and not keeping people in jail because they can't make the bond. But as I often say, it's no fun when the rabbits got the gun. No fun. And this is just one of those things. One of those things that has happened, and she's part of this now. Just to give you more content of this situation. This individual by the name the individual that was charged. His name was William. Get this, I kid you not. I can't make this. I can't. True story. I can't make this shit up. His name is William Sweats. William Sweats. A Flossmoor allegedly threw a drink in Foxx's face before he tried to hit her with his vehicle. Now, this is alleged. The crime happened happened in Flossmoor outside a home on Sterling Avenue. The defendant was allegedly inside the vehicle when he threw a brown substance-like liquid drink at Foxx. Phelps had stepped onto the roadway to keep from being hit. Swelters was appeared in court and was charged with 2 felonies. Released from custody pending his trial, he is not allowed to have any contact with Foxx. The defendant is scheduled for another court appearance on Tuesday. Now, here's the thing that's a little puzzling, and I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna circle around. Now, several months ago, Kim Foxx herself, ironically, was not charged with assaulting her husband that she openly admitted to officers via body cam. She admitted this. She was not arrested. She was not charged. Nothing was done. So, we can't say this is a black thing, white thing. This is it's a matter of it's all about who you know. And that really, it's bad enough that the Cook County State's Attorney's Office has a black guy, with no, no thanks to her, or partly because of her lackadaisy administration and her her kid gloves type of approach to certain crimes and certain criminals. Okay. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office has become the laughing stock of the country. Okay. And it's just ironic that someone should assault the Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx. Okay. This only highlights her disastrous career as the first black female state's attorney. And her legacy is going to be, quote unquote, stained by a Coca-Cola slushie being thrown in her face. As I said, it may have been a big improvement. Moving on. Now, the other hot topic today. Now, this is very interesting. Oh, I won't say interesting. I retract that. Okay, because tonight's topic is going to be basically about right and wrong, and about about sometimes when we say just, there's a term, justice delayed is justice denied. Okay. So also today in the news, and for those that are familiar with those that have grown up in the city of Chicago or are familiar, long time politician, Edward M. Burke was sentenced. Ed Burke was the longest sitting city council member or politician in the city of Chicago. The man served 50. He sat on the city council for 50 years. He was in charge of the city's finance committee, also part of the fire and police pension board. Now, for those who really have no understanding of city politics and how it works, how it actually works, it's not about protocol. It's not about who does what. It's about who knows who. It's about glad handshakes. It's about um working with your colleagues, but also working for your constituents and for I know some of that I know. And when I say constituents, meaning the average Joe, the average, John Q. Public, Jane Q. Public, the average Joe, the people who pay their taxes, that pays their salary. Okay, now Burke was elected into office in 1969, May of 1969. Actually, they held a special election because here's the irony. His father was a Chicago alderman, and he took his father's place. Okay, hence the term, where that term sort of comes from, grandfathered into that position. And the fact that that man is held on to that position from 1971 all the way to 1971 all the way up to 2019. That's 50 years that this man has been in power. I'm gonna tell you how long he's been in power. This man has been in power. He was in power when I was a child. Okay, when I was a child. That's how long he's been in power. Okay. Now let's just I'm not gonna go for the part of sake of argument. When he got into this, he had a good intentions. Yeah, maybe not. And I'm not a fortune teller, and I'm not going to speculate. But somewhere along the line, he lost his way. So just give and I'm gonna just pick through a couple of pick through this. Ed Burke, once the most powerful Chicago alderman, sentenced for corruption. The judge, Virginia Kendall, gave him 2-year prison sentence, and I'm going to delve into that. I'm going to dive into that part because when you say the 2-year prison sentence plus a $2 million fine. The fine consists of $200,000 on count 1 and $150,000 on the remaining counts. The money will go towards the victims of Burke's crime. Now, let's be totally honest about this. Where is that money actually going when they say going to the victims? Because now you have to sift through who really are the victims. Okay. The judge also gave him 1 year of supervised release. So the understanding is that the judge took into account, because the federal prosecutors were asking for 10 years. In actuality, I think that's what he should have. I think he should have gotten anywhere between 8 to 10. And what that does is I don't totally agree with the judge's amount of time, but she was allowed, but she sentenced him what the law allowed. Now, we can ask for something. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get as far as a criminal proceeding. The judge is only allowed to do what the judge can only do what the law allows her to do. And if 2 years was all that she was allowed to give him, because he's going to a federal penitentiary, and this is how it breaks down. He is to and this is the part to where we have to look at both sides of the fence, to where if this was Joe Average who got convicted on this, he would have been taken into custody right then and there. There is no leadway or consideration or this, that, and the third. Okay, the same way that Kim Foxx committed a crime, and this was whitewashed. Okay. If this had been you or I that assaulted a spousal member or a family or a spouse, family member, significant other, you're going into custody that night. Kim Foxx was not taken into custody. Ed Burke was convicted, but he was not taken into custody. He was actually allowed to walk out of the courtroom, come back for sentencing, and he is to report to federal penitentiary that is to be later determined, I believe September 23rd. But the point being is that, yes, the point being is this man is allowed to, quote, get his affairs in order before September 23rd, then he goes to prison. If that was me, they don't give a damn about my getting my affairs together, or kissing my kids goodbye, or my loved ones goodbye, or my significant others goodbye. They don't care about that because I'm an average Joe. Average Joe. But they're still working those details out. Okay, one of the prisons that they're talking about him possibly going to, the federal pension is one that's in it's in Wisconsin. Now, usually what happens is that when an individual is sentenced for federal time, they try to accommodate that the individual's family by having a prison within 2 to 2.5 hours away from them. That's usually the guidelines, or stipulate, and the closest would be, if I had to guess, and I don't really like guessing. I work in the world of specificities and certainties. If I Going off that, I would say one in Wisconsin. There's one in Michigan. There's two in Indiana. I believe there's one in Missouri, and most of those are within 2 to 3 hours time. Okay, but getting back to him. This is the killing part. Now, he was a lawyer. He had a law firm. Not only that, but his wife, Ann Burke, she was a Illinois Supreme Court justice. She stepped down, quote unquote, to support her husband. Okay. Now here's the other thing. Now they're also looking at this factor that since these crimes were committed while he was in office, should he lose his pension? Now think about this for a moment, people. You've been in city government for 50 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of bread. I mean, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he could get a pension, $5,000 a month. He could lose that. He could lose that. There's also talk that by him being an attorney and his law firm, that they could actually disbar him for these crimes that he's been convicted of. They could actually disbar him. Okay. These are some of the things that go on. But I bring that up because if this was an average Joe, this was you or I or anyone, any number one of us, there is no consideration. Absolutely none. No type of consideration whatsoever. None. The fact that this man, and I remember, I'm reaching for a story. I remember when I first heard about him, and this was roughly around the time that I was old enough to around the year that I was old enough to vote, and Harold Washington was running for mayor. And when Harold Washington became mayor, it was him, Burke, and Ed Burke and Ed Vidoliak. These were the two nemesis for Harold Washington. They gave Washington holy hell, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's how I remember Ed Burke. When a lot of this when it comes to factoring. Now, another thing. Now here's another thing that once we look at too. This also continues to develop the moniker for the city of Chicago as the most corrupt city in America. The most corrupt, from politicians to police officers, to these particular things. I mean, when you look at this, the first politician, when you want to go back, if you really want to do your history and go back, politicians that Illinois politicians, and I say Illinois politicians, that's another long list, but that's another story for another day, another topic for another day. Well, I'm sticking with Chicago. But when we dig into this and look at this and say, "Oh my goodness, this is how long this has been going on." It's not a matter of how long it's been going on; it's what it is and how people. And also, too, um, a Roman senator once said, Absolute power corrupts absolutes. And Ed Burke somewhat had that kind of that kind of carte blanche. Now I'm just going to go through a quick list of all the um, politicians dating back dating back as far as 71. Those and some and some of you are listening. I know some of you probably know some of these politicians and probably remember when they got convicted. Started, when we're going into this. And as it says, Chicago's no stranger to corruption. More than 30 Chicago City Council members have been tied to corruption since the 1970s, with Alderman Edward Burke of the 14th Ward becoming the latest Chicago politician to make the headlines. Okay. Um, starting off with number one. Well, I'm just putting in there, just putting this in this area. This is not top, not one being the top and going down. This is just a list. Okay. You have Willie Cochran. I remember him from the 20th Ward, indicted in 2016. Federal prosecutors accused him of demanding $1,500 from an attorney for a real estate developer to fix vacant homes in his ward, plus another $3,000 cash to a liquor store for a license. Willie Cochran. Then you move down to this one. This one is my favorite. This one is so funny by large. You have Sandy Jackson, who at the time was Jesse Jackson Jr.'s wife. She was the older woman for the 7th Ward. Pled guilty. She got caught up. Pled guilty in 2013 for not declaring $600,000 of taxable income. Also, she pled guilty to filing a false income returns. She went to prison. In fact, she went to prison in Virginia, and then Jesse also went. They kind of served off. She went first, and then he went. Now, the reason why I say this is funny. This is so funny. You had William Beavers. William Beavers who was another long-time serving alderman. Also, in fact, here's the ironic part: William Beavers stepped aside so Sandy Jackson can take over, because William Beavers was the alderman for the 7th Ward. And when he stepped aside, Sandy Jackson took over. William Beavers went to another department. But here's the backstory to what people don't know. And the fact of the matter that this was talked about in City Hall, and everybody knew this, that William Beavers and Sandy Jackson were having a relationship. Yeah. That's not speculation. That's actual. That's true. That is very, very true. William Beavers found guilty of tax evasion, but he went on to be a Cook County commissioner. I remember this one. Isaac Carruthers of the 29th Ward pled guilty in 2010. Now, here's the thing. This is so funny. This is a father and son duo. His father was also an alderman, and his father was convicted of the very same thing he got convicted of. Almost 3 decades later, his father was convicted. Carruthers pleaded guilty to bribery and tax charges. Here's another one of my favorites. This is one of my favorites. It's an oldie but goodie. Edward Vadoliak of the 10th Ward pled guilty in 2008. He was sentenced to 5 years probation and a $50,000 fine for a crooked real estate scheme. But that was another one. Arena Troutman, 20th Ward, pled guilty in 2008 for soliciting donations from developers. She was convicted of bribery and was sentenced to 4 years. Not only that, but she had her boyfriend on the payroll who happened to be a convicted felon. That didn't help her. That did not help. James Lasky, James Lasky was the city clerk, stealing money. Another, nearly taking $50,000 in bribes. Percy Giles, I remember this guy. It's just, see, when it's certain things that I remember about these politicians because I follow politics, and then when I hear how these people are getting caught up, you're asking yourself, is it greed, or is it because you have forgotten what your duties are? See, it's one thing. I have no problem with people doing stuff for people, whether it's a handshake or let me look into it, let me investigate or whatever. Okay. I have no problem with that. But when you start to cross that line to where you're taking money and you're compromising your position, that's where I have a problem. You have Virgil Jones convicted. Lawrence Bloom, I remember this guy. Another guy, 14. He got caught in a hand-to-hand giving an undercover FBI agent 14,000 or receiving. I take that back. He got caught receiving $14,000 from an undercover FBI agent. $14,000. $14,000. Jesse Evans, another knucklehead. Joseph Martinez. This is just a long line. Alan Streeter, Ambrosio Madrano. This and just goes on and on. Fred Rody. Now let me tell you a little bit about Fred Rody. Fred Rody was he was one of the top guys. He ran the first ward. The first ward consisted of downtown Chicago, but Fred Rody was, as they say, Fred Rody was mobbed up. He had people. He was part of the organization. Not seen, but people knew he was. But it's an individual that got things done. But at the same time, getting your hands dirty. Marion Humes, Percy Hutchinson. It's a list just and it goes on and on. Walter Davis Jr. The list goes on and on. Clifford Kelly. I know some of you all remember Cliff Kelly. Louis Farina, Tyrone Kenner. That was it just goes on. William Carruthers, and like I said, it goes on and on and on and on. This is just where we're at with the long line of corruption that continues to, so to speak, plague City Hall and plague the individuals that are supposed to be upholding their office. And when you are serving yourself and not the people, that is problematic for some people, or it should be problematic for all of us when you're not doing these things. See, and understanding myself, having worked in city government before or being part of that, and I saw these particular things on how things get done, how they get done. See, sometimes it doesn't necessarily take money to do things. Sometimes it takes a handshake. Sometimes it takes just to even give your word, just to put things into place. That's really you're doing. Because if you are an aldermanic individual, your job is to represent the people and not yourself. And these individuals that I listed, including Edward Burke, they help themselves. Now, on the flip side of Edward Burke's situation, the judge received over 200 letters saying how good he was. One person even stated that Ed Burke did so much he's just a priest without a collar. How do you compare the two, opposed to him breaking the law and not upholding the oath of his office to serve the people, opposed to he's like a priest without a collar? It's not, if he had raided a food pantry and handed out food to people who were in need, people probably would have looked at this a little differently. But you're soliciting money, and not only that, but you are participating in things that are only helping yourself and not people. Not people. Doing what? Wait, I didn't. Well, just so that I'm clear, because Earl made a comment and I didn't quite hear what he said. What he said? It sounds like Trump is doing the same thing. Well, no, but okay, we get it out now. We finna get into this. Okay, see, no. See, the difference. Okay, now I'm gonna get into this one here. The difference between Edward Burke and the list of 20 or 25 people that was on this list that were convicted, each and every one of these individuals helped themselves. Help themselves. Now, let me get into the now, just so we go into the part of Trump when they saying what he did. They're saying that, because a lot of people are asking this very question. This is why it's going to go. This is why it's in the appellate court, because they want to know where is the crime, because this was money. This was his own money that he manipulated. Nobody got hurt. Most importantly, the banks got their money back with interest. And it goes back to where he helped himself. He helped himself. He didn't hurt any people. He went in, filled out a piece of paper, say, this is what I want for this amount. Okay, well, we need to see, we need to see the color of your green or your collateral. Hey, this is what I got. This is what I got. Now, is it the bank's fault because they didn't verify that and they went off his word? Could be. But nevertheless, they gave him the money and he paid it back with interest. These people took money to help themselves. For example, Kerry Austin, who was the alderman of the 34th ward, took money from a private contractor to refurnish, to redecorate, to remodel her personal home in exchange to getting this contractor, getting this individual a contract with the city. She's helping herself. She's not helping the people. She's helping herself. This is what people are doing. And understanding, this is one of the things where it's sometimes if you have the opportunity to work for a municipality, and understand when you do, there are things that you're going to see. You're going to see that's like, oh, that's how that is, or that's how that works. Yes. There are things that you're going to be asked to do. Oh, well, that's what I have to. Yes. That's how it works. That's how the city works. How do you think the city? It's very one of those things to where when people say that they're doing, hey, I did this so the city, so I did this to make sure that this goes well, or this is that, or this, that, and the third. Making sure that the city, the citizens of the city sleep well. They sleep well because of me. They sleep well because I do this and this and this and this. See, sometimes we fail to realize the people that provide the very security that we bring into question. Sometimes we forget that that's how it works. And understanding how city government works. And Ed Burke knew that. Because why? He was groomed by his father on how the city works. So he knew what office or to campaign, so to speak, campaign for which particular committee. Chairman of the finance committee. That's the guy that sees every dime that comes to the city. And he's the guy that sees who gets what ward, what committee, what department gets the money, because he sees it first. They always say that, for those that probably don't know, back in the day, and this probably maybe our parents and damn sure our grandparents years ago used to have the milkman come by. And when if there's and there was a difference between milk and cream. Okay, there was a difference. Now, when you had if you had and when you had the cream, they always say that with cream, foam rises to the top. Basically the sweet part of the cream rises to the top. So here's the thing: what Burke did. Burke not only was the milkman, but he was also the guy taking the cream off of the top, because that's the sweetest part of the beverage. And when you are the head of the finance committee, you are the guy. You are the bank. And Edward Burke was the bank. Most people don't notice that Ed Burke was the most powerful man in the city of Chicago during those 51 years. The most powerful man in Chicago, the most powerful man in the city council. He had more power than all six mayors put together. This is how long. Now, just to even give you more of a background, not background, more of a timeline, on how long. When he became alderman in 1969, he was Daley Senior. He was there for Richard M. Daley all the way until Daley died in office in 1976. So he was there for Daley, Michael Bilandic, that's two, Jane Byrne, Harold Washington, then Daley's son, Richard J. Daley, that's five. Then after him, you had Rahm Emanuel, Lori Lightfoot, and the Jackass. Let's say that's eight mayors. That's how long he's been in office. Eight mayors. And he had more power than all of them put together. Nothing moved unless Edward Burke said so. No money moved. No money went to any department. Now, I will say that under his leadership of the finance committee, the police department saw a lot of money. Because why? When Edward Burke was tapped by the Democratic committee to fill his father's shoes or fill his father's seats, he was a sergeant with the Chicago Police Department. He was a sergeant with the Chicago Police Department. His father was a sheriff's deputy who worked in Cook at the time. He could hold two. Almost said you could hold two jobs because he was a sheriff's deputy at the county courthouse before he became an alderman. That's how long he's been. That's how long he's been in office. How long he sat there. 8 mayors. You shake your head. I know some of you shaking your head. That's a hell of a long time. Yeah, but see, people keep voting for him, and from the outside, it looks like he's doing good for the people. No. Look at, like I told you, Ed Burke was just taking the cream off the top and taking the sweetest part of the cream and leaving you with the base. That's what he did. And for years, make no mistake about it, for years, they have been trying to get him. They have been trying to get him for years. And to a degree, now they got him. And now, this is the funny part, and I've been wanting to say this since they got him. They got him. They're not playing check. They're playing chess, not checkers. Checkmate. That's how that goes. There's a cost, and he's got to think of now. He's got roughly 2 months to think about this. Now here's the other thing. Was it worth it? How hard would it have been? How much easier would it have been if he did his job, what he was elected to do? I don't want to hear anything about 200 letters that people said that he's a good person, he's this and he's that. We didn't say he wasn't a good person. We just questioned his morals. See, that's the other thing, and I'm gonna slide right into that. See, what makes an individual a good person, and when we talk about a good person, it's not about what you say or what you do. It's your character and your morals that not only determines, but it defines what a good person is. It defines. I had the privilege of actually meeting him once. I bumped into him while I was at City Hall one day. We didn't chat, but it was just, it's one of the things where it was kind of astounding to see him in person, and to think, and at that time, and I knew who he was, and I knew the power that he wielded. But to think about that and see, what how he did this. Now, this is a part to where, and like I say, and that this is not a instance, but this is just telling the truth. There are certain departments that saw a lot of money, that a lot of money flowed through Burke's hands, and a lot of departments, particularly the police department, saw a lot of money because he was a police officer. And the bottom line, the thing with police is that police officers are going to take care of one another. This is no slight to the fire department, but we have to understand something in the city of Chicago on two schools of thought with the fire and the police department. Since its inception, and this is just a little bit of a history. Since its inception, the police department and the fire department, the police department has belonged to the Irish. Okay, Burke is an Irishman. The police department has always belonged to the Irish. The fire department belonged to the Italians. Okay, and it's no secret it's no secret that the Irish and Italians don't get along. And granted, Burke, he shelled out some money to the fire department, but the police department saw a lot more. It's called a brotherhood. It's called with, and that was him taking care of his people. That was him. Now, just a kind of sort of sidebar for a moment, we got a situation out there in Dalton with the so-called the so-called the sea donkey out there, Tiffany Henyard, just making a complete disaster of the city of Dalton, and not only that, but the Thornton Township, and Thornton Township consists of 11 communities. 11 communities. And unfortunately, this is the difference between white people running the show and handling money, and blacks running the show and handling money. This is the difference. See, and the unfortunate part about us, we don't know how to handle money because we have not been shown, taught, groomed, or educated. That's what makes it difficult for us to hold certain high level positions, because if it involves money, it's a very good chance that we're going to screw that up. And that's exactly what this broad is doing out there. She got hit with three federal subpoenas. Now, it's an old saying, she's dead, she just don't know it yet. She's going to prison. She is going to prison. Make no mistake about that. It's just a matter of time when they start culminating everything. And not only that, but here's the other part. The fire department, a lot of some of these guys have found out, this was about a week and a half ago. They found out that the money that's being taken out of their checks, to go into their pension funds, they found out that it's going someplace else. And some of these guys are finding out they don't have any money in their pension funds. Let me tell you something. I find out something like that, I'm killing somebody today, tomorrow, or or as quickly as I possibly can, messing with my money. But these people have found out that the money has been messed up. It went into some other account that's not attached to the pension fund. That's most disturbing. And not only that, but this happened under the current mayor, Tiffany Henyard. This is disturbing. This goes back to the part of understanding what you're supposed to be doing. We're not saying, I'm not saying that what Burke did was right, but he understood his position, and he ran it as he should. He ran it in the way that he did. He ran it. Now, if they got him for corruption. The corruption wasn't him messing up city money, taking city money and doing different things with it. That was him soliciting other people for businesses and being paid. This chick is messing with government money, messing with city money, county money, federal money. She's going to prison. And anybody that happened to be standing next to her, they're going to be singing that old Negro spiritual. We all going to jail together. Ain't no we shall overcome. Ain't no it's gonna be all right in the morning. Ain't none of that. Because when they hit her, there's a good chance that they will hit her with what they call the RICO Act. That's racketeering, influence, and corruption. They can actually do that because here's the thing: for every count that she would be charged with, that's for they could hit her, and being charged with RICO, it starts out at 5 years. Now, depending on how many charges, they could hit her 5 years. They could hit her per 5 years per charge. You can get that at 5, and then you ask yourself, is this worth it? Now, let me slide back over to the city of Chicago. This is another one too. This is another knucklehead. You take Brandon Johnson. This dude is spending $30,000. I quote, I kid you not, $30,000 a month on beautification, meaning haircuts, manicures, foot massages, whatever else. $30,000 on beautification for yourself? Nigga, what's wrong with you? $30,000. When that came out, he had no answer. Well, I'm very particular on on who handles this and handles that. Nigga, you better take your behind down to Inglewood and sit in one of them chairs and let them brothers hook you up on a real haircut. Or go see one of the sisters who know how to do the nails. Come on now, really, because that's somebody really robbing the taxpayers. And if you all are not outraged by that, then you deserve everything you got coming. So as they say, bend on over, because that's exactly what he's doing. And he's saying, you're going to take this. So with that being said, that's going to be all the time that we got for tonight's show, because I see the lights flashing in the distance and the helicopter is about to land, which means that that's all the time we got here on tonight's show, Black Conservative Podcast. But these are particular things that you all should look at, pay attention to, and be observant about that. Okay? Be observant about it. So with that being said, not my monkey, not my circus. Somewhere there's a crime being committed, and I gotta go deal with it.
Batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.